Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Arkanasa Radio Studios in Laredo, Texas. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. I got to thinking the other day, you know how a lot of people, their favorite, fondest memories of their father is them going fishing together or maybe going camping together, something along those lines. I don't have those memories. What I remember, what comes to mind anytime I think about my old man, one night we went to see a movie. This was back in the old days when they had the big screen with the curtain that would open and there was a stage between you and the screen, and it was a little more of an event than just going to the mall to see a movie. Well, we're walking down the street after seeing some war movie. I think it might have been his Paris Burning. And me and my brother are walking about maybe 2 or 3 steps behind our parents. Well, some guy in a car, the passenger, made a comment, something about or to my mother. It wasn't nice. Without even missing a step, my old man's right hand shot out and hit the guy right square on the jaw. His eyes rolled up in his head and he was unconscious before his head hit the back of the seat. The driver freaked out, not knowing what to do, so he just sat there staring. Me and my brother decided at that point that we had better behave ourselves or else. Don't remember fishing, don't remember camping, but I remember watching my old man knock some guy unconscious. Whew. Anyway, UFOs once more. A lot of folks out there believe there are creatures here on our planet that come from some distant star. Some of these people are willing to go to just about any extent to find the truth. For example, according to Facebook, 120,000 people have pledged that they are going to meet up and storm Area 51. This insane plan is being organized on Facebook. It's a good thing the government has never heard of Facebook, right? This planned insanity is scheduled to take place on September 20th, 2019 at 3 o'clock in the morning. The meeting place will be Area 51's Alien Center in Amargosa Valley, Nevada. Those taking part will then proceed to Area 51, a super-secret classified military facility believed to contain alien technology and maybe even aliens themselves. To begin with, the government now has a few months to prepare a huge reception committee to welcome these invaders to the super-secret base. I realize the actual plan is more than likely just a joke. However, there are people out there that actually thought the movie Blair Witch was an actual event. The organizers of this insanity said they are planning to do the Naruto run so that they can move faster than the area security guards' bullets. Naruto Run is a meme inspired by a popular anime character, Naruto Uzumaki, who has a distinctive running style. So a bunch of kids that spend their lives playing video games are going to run faster than bullets. Dodging bullets is something that no one has succeeded to do in the past. In January, the local sheriff's office of Nevada National Security Site officers shot a man carrying an unidentified cylindrical object after attempting to drive into the site. There is no way hundreds of thousands of people are going to show up in the desert to take part in this plan. People aren't all that reliable. Have you ever tried to get 20 people all in the same place at the same time? And now for the bad news. A conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to engage jointly in an unlawful or criminal act, or an act that is innocent in itself but becomes unlawful when done by combination of actors. Conspiracy is a crime separate from the criminal act for which it is developed. For example, one who conspires with another to commit burglary and in fact commits the burglary can be charged with both conspiracy to commit burglary as well as the burglary itself. Or a group of people that conspire to commit trespass onto government property. To make matters a bit more interesting, if a group of people conspire to break the law and only half of them actually do break the law, everyone who was in on the initial conspiracy can be prosecuted for the crime. So, if a bunch of people show up on September 20th and cross that line in the dirt, everybody involved in making this plan can be arrested and prosecuted. I'm interested in watching this whole mess unfold on TV, well away from the action. Like I said, this is probably just some kind of a weird joke that is getting way out of hand. So many of our past presidents have sidestepped the question when it was asked. Clinton made a huge show of saying some kid had sent him a letter asking about UFOs. However, no one can find any record of this letter ever actually being written or mailed or received at the White House. Well, President Donald Trump has said he met with officials about UFOs, although he reiterated that he did not particularly believe in them. Trump revealed that the military briefed him on UFO sightings. This is the first president to actually say that the government has discussed this. He said he had seen and read and heard and did one very brief meeting on it. He pointed out that the people were saying they saw UFOs, but he didn't believe it particularly. He never said he thought the people were crazy. He just said it was not something that he was interested in. Despite the president's disinterest in UFOs, the military has been keeping an eye on the skies recently. After the increase in UFO reports, the Navy recently set new guidelines for reporting UFOs entering U.S. aerospace and making sure all sightings get properly investigated. Last month, the Pentagon admitted that the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, was involved in research and investigation of UFOs. Of course, they call them UAPs now, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. But we all know what they're talking about, UFOs. Defense Department spokesman Christopher Sherwood revealed that the ATIP's main focus was investigating UFO events. Now, ATIP was supposedly shut down in 2012. But in 2017, ATIP's existence was suddenly known about. Sherwood claimed that the government still has a department that handles sightings of alien aircraft. People talk about the new branch of the military as if it's a unit that will be battling space aliens. June 18, 2018, President Trump directed the Pentagon to begin planning for Space Force, a sixth independent military service branch to undertake missions and operations in the rapidly evolving space domain. The U.S. Space Force would be the first new military service in more than 70 years, following the establishment of the U.S. Air Force in 1947. Vice President Mike Pence and the Department of Defense released more details about the planned Space Force on August 9, 2018, citing plans to create a separate combatant command, U.S. Space Command, in addition to an independent service overseen by a civilian secretary. It's not yet clear how many troops will be serving in the U.S. Space Force or how much it's going to cost us. The new military service is set to be established by 2020. Now, that's just next year. I really think the Space Force will be tasked with fighting other countries in outer space, as well as any possible invaders from outside our solar system. It sounds exciting, like an old sci-fi movie. I doubt anyone will be flying around in little rocket ships shooting lasers at flying saucers. More than likely, the shooting will be done using unmanned drones while the pilots sit in some command bunker here on Earth. A lot of folks I know that believe in flying saucers and spend many hours reading about various UFOs and watching all those cool TV shows like Alien Highway and Unidentified, got really excited when the U.S. government came up with this latest bit of news. Encounters with unidentified aircraft by pilots have once again prompted the Department of Defense officials to take action. More specifically, the Navy confirmed that they were in the process of drafting new guidelines to establish a formal process for pilots and military personnel to report UFO sightings. The Navy spokesman said, "There have been a number of reports of unauthorized and unidentified aircraft entering various military-controlled ranges and designated airspace in recent years. For safety and security concerns, the Navy and the U.S. Air Force actually take these reports seriously, and they investigate each and every report. Yes, however, in the past, few, if any, pilots would file a report because of the ridicule that would follow, as well as the pilot being reassigned to a desk for the rest of their career. To improve upon past investigations, the Navy wanted to establish a formal process so that such suspected incursions can be made to cognizant authorities. In other words, they want to make it easier for pilots to actually tell what they're seeing up there in the skies. The Navy confirmed a fleet-wide message on the UFO reporting initiative is in the works. Well, people following this report got excited, thinking the government was about to go public on UFO sightings being reported by military pilots. This is not how it's going to work. Any pilots reporting a UFO will now be able to fill out a report saying that they saw something no one can explain, but then these reports will all go into some super secret office somewhere inside the Pentagon, or probably at a building at Area 51, or maybe Dulce, New Mexico, or maybe even Wright-Patterson in Ohio. This is not going to be a new Project Blue Book. It only gives the pilots a place to tell about what they saw while flying. These reports are going to be kept top secret, unless it's some easily explained away sighting, and then they'll let us hear about it. Now, I won't be surprised if in the next few months some government official comes out with a brand new UFO reporting office. It will probably be a website where you can fill out a few forms and then hit enter. The reports will go zipping off to a computer, and that will be it. There will be some algorithm that should you say something like the craft fired a laser at me, or maybe the aliens said we come in peace, the file will get shunted off to some GS5's desk for further scrutiny. In the long run, a lot more will be said than will ever be done. The whole disclosure idea is just beyond me. People say the government have to tell us because it's the right thing to do. Now think about it. If the government comes out tomorrow and says all the things you think happened at Roswell are true, the next step will be people wanting to know how much of the alien technology will be released to us. The government would have to say, it all belongs to private industry now. Well, we would ask, who gave this alien technology to these private industries? And the government will say, well, we did. Well, we would naturally demand access to this technology because it originated with the government and therefore it belongs to us. Do you really think that these companies making billions of dollars selling cool new devices to the government will actually tell us what they've got? They would have to share their secrets. And this would mean giving up a lot of money. The government doesn't do anything to make money. The only way the government can get money to spend on cool toys is by taking it away from us. Taxes. Colonel Corso said in his book, The Day After Roswell, he was in charge of distributing alien technology to various companies that would develop it, make new weapons or devices for national security, and then sell it back to the government at an enormous profit. The government would then tax the citizens to pay for this technology, and then it was all kept secret from us for national security reasons. Well, that's the world we live in. We pay for it, but we don't get to play with it. I spent the last week scouring the internet looking for UFO sightings just from this year, as well as reading some of my past books that I've got, some of the magazines I get, trying to find some interesting UFO reports. In January in North Carolina, a man named Brett was filming some birds as they flew around. As he was filming the birds, a flashing light caught his attention. First, he thought it was just an airplane. However, the object was moving way too slow to be a plane. Then the flash of light was not steady like the lights on a terrestrial aircraft. It didn't blink in a rhythmic manner. After filming the object for as long as he could, Brett went inside to view it on his computer. The object appeared to be shaped like a huge pill, with what looked like a bullet at each end. The shape of the object was extremely similar to footage that had been captured over the skies of Manchester, England, back in 2011. Both of these images look to be of an enormous craft that doesn't look as if it should be flying. During the late afternoon of January 8th, 2019, between 4 and 5 p.m., multiple residents in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire areas of England witnessed a neon green flash or streak of light cut across the darkening skies. One of the witnesses, Debbie, said she'd seen 3 flashes of green light that were at a low altitude and traveling horizontally. She also said there was no way these flashes could have been made by drones. The flashes were way too fast, and they were too far to have been any drone. Debbie said this was very much like a UFO she'd seen with her father back in 1988. She said it's a UFO by definition. It was unidentified. It was a flying object. It was like someone had thrown a frisbee, she said. The UFO seen by her dad and her was reported in the papers, and it was later confirmed at the Gatwick radar base. You do wonder what these things are, she said. Hull, in the northeast of England, was the center of a rash of UFO sightings. Beginning on January 6th at about 5:45, when 2 unnamed women spotted a red glowing object in the sky. They described the object as being a huge red ball with what looked like rings running around it like Saturn. It was stationary for several minutes as the pair stood there watching it, trying to determine what it was. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't a balloon. They could see it, but they had no idea what they were seeing. After a few seconds of staring up at this object, they were able to take a photo before the object moved out of sight. 3 days later, another Hull resident said they saw a massive red orb in the sky. The witness said they were in bed when they heard a loud bang from outside. They stepped out to see what had caused the sound and looked around before seeing the red orb. Later, when he saw the photograph that had been taken by the 2 women, he said it was the exact same thing. 2 days after the second report, and 5 days after the first, there was a third report of a UFO sighting over the skies of Hull. This one occurred on the late afternoon of January 11th at a few minutes around after 4:30. A family was walking towards the shopping center when suddenly a multicolored UFO caught their attention. It was hanging in the air overhead and appeared to be circular shaped, and it was sparkling in various different colors. The entire family looked upwards, shocked at the scene before them. Then the object vanished in a second. 15 minutes later, a strange craft appeared in the sky once more. This time the witness managed to take a picture. The object was flashing red, and then blue, and then green and yellow. It was all sorts of colors. After a few seconds, the object vanished just as quickly as it had the first time. The witness said there was no doubt in their mind that the object was not a plane. It was moving too quickly, and it simply wasn't the shape of a plane. They also doubted that it could have been a balloon because it simply disappeared. It didn't drift away. January 17th, 6 days later, the flying orb was spotted in Doncaster, about an hour away from Hull. The folks that saw it described a glowing ball of light that landed in somebody's yard. It sat there a few seconds before it lifted up into the sky, and it was gone. On the evening of January 14th in Trinidad, Colorado, a wife and husband watched as a UFO flew through the air over their home before it landed on Simpson's Rest, which is a mountain behind their neighbor's home. The wife was able to film this weird occurrence, but the UFO is hard to see due to a sign that is illuminated that stands between them and the object. You can see the sign glowing bright, and you can just barely see the object behind it. The husband said the craft was flying when it suddenly landed, and when it did, sparks came from the ground around it. The wife guessed it might have done this because there was a thunderstorm coming in from the north. The UFO sat on the mountain for a few minutes before it shot straight up into the air. Something that looked like the Millennium Falcon was seen over Calgary, Canada on February 3rd. A person living in Calgary captured 3 photographs of a Millennium Falcon-shaped UFO in the clouds of the night sky. The craft had dropped down through the clouds just as the picture was taken. One researcher said he believed the craft was using some form of cloaking device and had just switched it off, and this was when the craft was seen. The UFO still has mass, and that mass is pushing aside the clouds it had been hiding in. This is not the first time that a UFO is said to use clouds to hide in. Cloaking is something that many researchers have stated is very real technology. Physicists have been working on cloaking devices, and they're making some headway. The easiest way to describe one is to take a photo of what is behind the object and then project it to the face of the object. So you would simply see what is on the other side of the craft. Now you can buy a Millennium Falcon drone, depending on how much money you want to pay, anywhere from $50 on up to $300. But they don't come with a cloaking device. I am going to take a brief pause here, play a couple of commercials. Don't go away, we'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio. Did you hear a bump in the night and you think it just might be a ghost? Contact the Laredo Paranormal Research Society at laredoparanormal@hotmail.com. That's the LPRS for all your otherworldly needs. Coffee makes the world go round. And around here, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike, 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. If you're not looking for coffee, try their tea. It's the best in town. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. Makeup isn't something you want to just smear on and hope for the best. You might come out looking like Lon Chaney. Call Lourdes James, independent beauty consultant, and get a free makeover to see how makeup should be done. 956-723-3019. If your vision isn't what it used to be, and you're not sure you're seeing Bigfoot or just your neighbor mowing his lawn, stop on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle del Norte, just across the street from the Embassy Suites. You should be able to see what you're looking at. This is Arkanasa Radio you've been listening to. And welcome back to the show. On the evening of February 17th, in the Montélimar region of France, a motorist witnessed a strange glowing object traveling overhead. It was just past 9 p.m. when he witnessed the red and white flashing object come down from above as if it was falling from the sky. Just as the object was about to hit the ground, it suddenly leveled and hovered above the trees for several moments. It then began to move off towards the north. The witness continued to follow the slow-moving, glowing craft. As he drove, the man was able to take a few photos from the open window of his car. He continued to watch for around 3 to 4 minutes before the craft began to glow even brighter. As the glow increased, the ground below was bathed in what looked just like neon-type light. The light was gone in the blink of an eye. The witness thinks the craft suddenly glowing brighter was an indication it was about to fly away at an incredible speed. The investigator who examined the pictures could find no evidence it had been faked in any way. A man in Orlando, Florida, spotted an object flying about a field just about 45 feet from where he stood. This was on February 18th at about 1 o'clock in the morning. As he was filming, 2 men approached him and told him that he should probably stop filming and not talk about what he had seen. The witness was a bit unnerved, so he headed back home. The next thing he knew, it was 2:30 in the morning. He quickly checked his cell phone and discovered the video of the flying object was gone. He thinks the 2 men had followed him home, and they did something to cause him to become unconscious. A quick check of his phone showed the video had been deleted, but the still photos were still there. The witness thinks they were missed by the MIBs. The witness went on to say he's seen these same strange objects around the same area in the past, and he thinks they're all connected. Just after 8:15 p.m. in February, 2 Air Midwest aircraft were conducting night navigation exercises, heading towards Gloucester in England. As they cut through the night sky, both pilots witnessed 1 red and 1 orange light in the sky. One of the pilots attempted to approach, but as he got closer, the strange craft vanished. The pilot would later state he had observed 2 large, square, orange lights, one on top of each of these 2 craft. The craft were flying beside each other, but one was slightly higher than the other. The lower part of both craft had an orange light that turned white once in a while. Air Midwest said that while they were not at all certain the object was an extraterrestrial origin, their pilots were witness to unexplained airborne lights that defied our normal expectations of standard aircraft or meteorological activity. They also stressed that both pilots were experienced flyers with over 25,000 air miles between them. They were both described as being trustworthy witnesses. A red orb the size of a 747 was seen over Pulupandan, Philippines on February 17th. For several nights a glowing orb was seen that looked as big as a jumbo jet. This object was seen by several people on the ground who all described the same thing. A few of these witnesses were able to catch the glowing ball on their cell phones. Investigators that look into the sightings believe the craft might have come from the water. They think there might be some huge underwater alien base down there. The investigators also said they think this giant glowing orb was the same craft that had been seen by the two pilots from England just a few days earlier. Well, that's the problem with my computer. I just realized it's unplugged and my battery's going low. Shucks. There. Oopsies. I was sitting here and I could see that my computer was getting a little dimmer and a little dimmer, and I was like, I wonder what's going on. Oopsies. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Anyway, computer problems. Let me tell you about some. Earlier, last week, I was preparing for the show, and I spilled a cup of coffee on my keyboard. Well, computers and coffee do not go along well together, and my computer stopped working. Well, not being rich or financially stable, I was unable to run to the nearest store and buy a new computer, and all my files were on the now dead computer. Well, I was able to turn it back on, but now I had no keyboard. So, simple, quick solution. I ran to Best Buy and I bought a remote keyboard, and I used that for a while until my new keyboard would arrive. Well, taking the old keyboard out and putting the new one in was a lot more work than I was anticipating, but well, I managed to get my computer back to life, and so now I just got to make sure I don't accidentally unplug it while using it. On the evening of February 22nd in San Diego, California, around 10 p.m., a 15-year-old dance student saw a bright-colored golden square overhead. She was being driven home by the mother of a fellow dance student at the time. As they were driving along the highway, the student, sitting on the front passenger seat, saw the square-shaped object overhead. And she said, "Look, aliens," to the driver. The driver looked up at the object but didn't think anything of it. She didn't know what they were, but she didn't think they were aliens. The teenager continued to watch for several seconds until the two lights began moving in opposite directions. This was when she began filming the object that was closest to her side of the car. She continued to film it for around a minute until it was out of sight. She turned her camera off just before she spotted a third craft, but it was gone before she could get the camera up again. The craft on her video didn't look like any kind of a plane or drone, just a huge glowing square. 2 UFOs were seen hovering over Lima, Peru, on February 27th. The sighting took place at 6:30 in the morning. What makes this one so bizarre is it took place right over a busy airport. 2 unknown craft were seen hovering over the airport for an hour. Just about everybody at the airport saw these craft, but nobody could figure out what they were. Jorge Chavez, speaking on behalf of the Peruvian Corporation of Airports and Commercial Aviation, said, 2 unidentified flying objects were not only witnessed for a considerable period, they were recorded as they hovered over the airport for around an hour. This is very much like the Chicago airport incident that took place back in 2006. The authorities rushed out with all manner of explanation to make this situation go away. No matter how bizarre the explanations sounded, a lot of the public will think there's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, sort of thing. A lot of people didn't know this, but Operation Blue Book was not there to investigate UFO sightings. It was really there to make UFO sightings go away. Make people think that, oh, everybody that sees a UFO is crazy, or they're seeing things, or they're not all that bright. In the early hours of March 16th in the town of Espanola, New Mexico, at about 3 a.m., a local resident witnessed a bright white light hovering in the sky. As he watched, the light changed from white to red, and then blue. As the light would blink on and off, a dark object could be seen with the lights attached to it. The witness said he'd seen these lights a few other times. He was positive these were not aircraft from any of the air bases around the area. Stars shimmer, but they don't blink. The shimmering is actually caused as the light passes through our atmosphere. The stars don't actually twinkle, that's just a song. In Los Angeles, California, March 17th at about 8 p.m., a woman said her family was in the backyard having a cookout when they spotted a group of glowing UFOs in the sky. It looked as if there were between 18 or 20 of these craft that were coming out of a cloud bank. The whole family stood there and watched the unusual lights move across the sky, and then they disappeared into another cloud bank. The lights had traveled from north to south at approximately 10,000 feet. The lights were visible for about 10 minutes. At 10 p.m. in Nashville, Tennessee, on the evening of March 20th, a witness managed to capture around 20 seconds of footage of several lights in a distinct triangular shape. The witness observed the strange flickering lights for several minutes before deciding they had best get their camera out. When observing the lights using the camera's zoom, the glowing orbs could be seen to be changing color. They went from white to orange and back. As he watched, the lights just blinked out as if passing through a hole of some kind. Some folks theorized that the triangle might have passed through a portal. In northern New York State, March 18th, around Lockport, a boomerang-shaped craft was seen by two witnesses that were standing in front of their homes. They watched the craft for a few minutes until it began to rise straight up into the sky. Then it was just too far to see. Both men said they could see what looked like a faded rainbow coloration. They both said it was definitely not a drone. The next day in Newmarket, Canada, a boomerang-shaped craft was seen on March 19th. The Newmarket, Canada, is right across the border from New York State. The craft was a kind of a faded rainbow color once again. The two sightings aren't all that far apart, so it was probably the same craft, but once again nobody knows what it was or where it had come from. A pair of diamond-shaped craft were sighted in both Arizona and Pennsylvania on March 28th. This is only 2,000 miles apart. Both sightings were in the evening. The diamond shape is not a common shape when it comes to UFOs. The first sighting was in Conway, Arizona. The witness said the two diamonds were traveling from the west towards the east. Both diamonds appeared to be black on the bottom and kind of a silver color on the top. On the same evening in McKinnisport, Pennsylvania, a local resident was standing on their porch when they noticed a diamond-shaped UFO with 4 red lights, one at each corner. It moved quickly across the night sky. Just a short time later, a second diamond passed overhead, traveling in the same direction as the first. A few minutes later, both diamond-shaped craft reappeared in a different part of the sky. Down under, they have the same weird lights as we're seeing down up here. A bunch of orange, red glowing orbs were seen over the beach near West Auckland late one night in April. No one was able to get a photo or a video, but there were several witnesses that all agreed the thing was not a balloon or a drone. As the people watched, one of the orbs suddenly began moving at an incredible speed. The others all stayed in place. The moving orb turned and took off out to sea, vanishing in a few seconds. The witnesses all stood and watched the horizon, trying to see the object again. This was when one of them looked up, and they could see there were now 5 orbs stationed in a circle around where the witnesses were standing. Well, the witnesses decided this was getting too crazy, so they packed up and left. Other people had reported seeing orange or red glowing objects flying in the air around the beach. The naysayers tried to explain the orbs away by saying these were just beach balls. Well, beach balls don't hang in the air for minutes, and they sure don't glow. The people will come up with any kind of a crazy explanation for UFO sightings because it's easier on their minds. If you convince yourself there is a rational, reasonable explanation, even if the explanation is as weird as glowing, floating beach balls, the alternative would be to admit there were things flying around our skies that might not be from this earth. I hear reports of glowing orange or red orbs all the time. When I was at Edinburgh UFO Festival, a lot of people passed by would stop to tell me about their sightings. What always amazes me is there we are at a UFO festival. I'm selling books about UFOs. People are dressed up to look like aliens. And the person talking to me will say, "You'll probably think I'm crazy, but this is what I saw." I've seen some weird lights in the sky that could not be explained. They were too fast and too maneuverable to be planes or balloons or anything of that normal manner. The trouble with these light sightings is, it's a light. You have no real shape to go by. A photo just looks like a bright orb. J. Allen Hynek called these darn lights. You can't really investigate them because they just look like lights, only they move in ways that nothing else can move. Also in April, only on the other side of the planet, people reported seeing a green-white orb hovering in the sky over Scottsdale, Arizona. It was about 6 p.m. when witnesses saw this orb for about 20 minutes. The witnesses said they would never have seen the orb if it wasn't for hearing the sound of jets flying overhead. The witnesses all looked up to see 2 sets of fighter jets streaking across the sky, and then they noticed the orb. It wasn't extremely bright, almost like looking at the sun. There was a loud booming sound, and the orb was gone. The early evening of April 11th, folks living in England saw a bright light hanging in the sky. Witnesses said it looked as if it was reflecting the sun rather than glowing. It was 5 p.m., the sun was still up. The people living in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, as well as many folks living in villages around the area, saw the bright object sitting in one spot. It was visible for about 15 minutes before it began to move away. Several hours later, people living in the village of Hatfield and Finningley saw the same object. It looked as if the light was pulsing. It would grow brighter, and then it would dim just a bit. One witness said at first they thought the object was just a Chinese lantern, but then it grew very bright. When the object dimmed a bit, he decided this was not anything known to man. Everyone that had seen these objects agreed none of the objects made any sound. Multicolored lights were spotted in a triangular shape over Caguas, Puerto Rico on April 11th. The first object looked just like a bright light in the sky. The light looked a bit yellow, but it was too big to be a plane or a star. The witness got out their camera and zoomed in on the yellow light. As the shape came into focus, it was a giant triangle. There was a light at each point that from a distance appeared to be just one big light. That same day in San Antonio, Texas, a woman saw a flying triangle. She was sitting on the porch with her boyfriend when she saw 3 lights in the sky. As they watched the lights, it became apparent that they were all the same big object. After watching this strange object for a few minutes, the woman realized she should try to capture a photograph of it with her phone. She got her cell phone and recorded a few minutes of the triangle. Well, that footage wound up being shown on the TV news later that week. A man was filming the moon late one evening when he spotted an object that moved behind it. The object would have to have been extremely big to show up if it were on the far side of the moon. Have you ever wondered why it's called the dark side of the moon? The moon orbits around the Earth as it rotates. The rotation is at the exact right speed that as the moon turns and rotates, the same side is always facing the Earth. Those great big dark spots you see on the moon are called Mars, which means oceans. But there is no water in them. The Mars have a very high gravitational pull. So much that NASA had to take this into consideration when planning any moon landings. The gravitational pull would actually affect the spacecraft as it passed overhead. Since up until we launched spacecraft capable of flying around the moon, no one had ever seen what it looked like, so it was called the dark side of the moon. As Pink Floyd said, there is no dark side of the moon. As a matter of fact, it's all dark. Back to the giant craft hiding behind the moon. The object looked kind of like the satellite shown in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Kind of like a giant donut. There are a lot of us that believe the moon is not a natural satellite of the Earth. Somebody watches me, and whenever I start doing a podcast, they call. And it's always the same nonsense. Google wants to know why I'm not taking full abilities of their website. They'll call 3 or 4 times a day. And it's a different phone number each time. I guess they've never heard of the do not call list. Anyway, back to the giant donut. The moon doesn't appear to be natural. It's not a natural satellite of the Earth. To begin with, the moon is far older than the Earth. And the moon is far larger than any other moon circling any other planet. Then there's the fact that the moon is exactly the right place to cause an eclipse. And the moon is hollow. When Apollo 12 commander Charles Conrad and lunar module pilot Alan Bean were finishing up on the moon, they set up some seismic equipment to study the moon's density. Once the two astronauts were reunited with Command Module pilot Richard Gordon, the landing module was jettisoned and sent to crash into the moon's surface. November 20th, 1969, the lander hit the surface of the moon, and the folks at NASA listened to the telemetry. The moon rang like a bell for over an hour. Well, NASA claimed, if you can believe this was due to the sound waves passing through the moon's core. Kind of like when you hold up a bowling ball and you thump it with your fist. You hear the sound passing through the bowling ball, right? Well, on more than one occasion, I've parroted what Richard C. Hoagland has said. NASA stands for never a straight answer. I sometimes get the feeling that the folks working at NASA, those rocket scientists, think that the rest of us are nothing but a bunch of ignorant nincompoops. They will waltz out these explanations that make absolutely no sense and expect us to believe them. And then they wonder why we tend to not take them seriously. In Eastbourne, UK, a witness was filming a helicopter as it flew overhead. The witness was what is known as an aviation enthusiast. Believe it or not, back when I was young, it was a big thing to go out to the airport to watch planes take off and land. Well, there wasn't a whole lot on TV back then. Anyway, the person in Eastbourne filmed the chopper fly by on a cell phone, and then they went home to view the footage. As the witness watched the film, the object could be seen following the helicopter. It was a glowing ball that followed as the aircraft went by. People have asked me, why would a flying saucer need light? Well, some physicists have theorized that the light we see is actually the visible product of whatever power source the spaceships are using. Kind of like the exhaust from a car or maybe a flame from a lantern. A brightly lit triangle was filmed flying over Minot, North Dakota on April 21st. It was right about 10 p.m. when a witness spotted a triangular craft as it passed overhead. The triangle was visible for 20 minutes. There were several white lights along the bottom of the craft that would blink on and off in some kind of a pattern. There were also a few green and blue lights mixed in. Had this been conventional aircraft, there should have been red lights as well. The craft moved through the night sky as the pair watched it. One of them was able to catch the triangle on film. A Bolivian cattle rancher has been plagued by cattle mutilations for the past 6 months. The UFOs look like glowing orbs, he said. The orbs would fly over the cattle pens at night, causing the animals to panic. He would see a bright light being beamed down on the cattle. Well, the rancher began shooting at the orbs, trying to drive them away. The orbs would leave, only to come back within a few minutes. The next day, the rancher would find one of his cows in a field missing some of its organs. Many years ago, back in 1998, I actually got to talk to a sheriff's deputy that worked in Arizona during the mutilations that took place there. He said, at night, the cattle would be all driven into pens and kept there overnight. There were armed guards all around the perimeter. In the morning, someone would find one or two of the cattle were dead in a field far from where they were supposed to be. The cattle mutilations are still going on today, but the story is seldom covered in the news. Well, the rancher in Bolivia thinks that these mutilations are the beginning of an alien invasion that is soon to come. In May, someone caught a huge black object hovering in the sky. There was very little sound other than cars driving by, so there was no way of knowing where the sighting had been. The flying object just hangs there in the sky. It doesn't look like any kind of a balloon because it's long and thin. It may have been a blimp or a zeppelin, but these craft don't really hover very well. If they're stationary too long, they tend to drift towards the ground. And you can hear the sound of the engines on a blimp or a zeppelin. The craft in the video just hangs there, not moving. One witness reported encountering a cloaked UFO that was hovering over Wilsonville, Oregon on May 19th. At sunset, the witness, along with their son and his girlfriend, were sitting outside their home attempting to capture the sunset using their phone. As they did, they noticed something very strange showing up on their screen. The witness believed that the UFO was not visible to the human eye. As he explained in his report to MUFON during the video, his son's girlfriend exclaimed that she can't see it in the sky. To this, the witness responds, "I know, it's cloaked." The witness then began to use their laser pointer in an attempt to communicate with the strange craft. Well, on the video, it looks as if the laser pointer is being shot through a window, since it's reflecting off of something. The unknown object looks pixelated as the camera tried to zoom in on it. During the footage, several white orbs can be seen moving around a central, larger object. The object would come in and out of view before finally shooting directly up into the sky and vanishing. The witness guessed the object was no more than a mile away, and it appeared to be about 500 feet in the air. Lots of people love to give their opinion. Some are rather nasty, but that's what you get sometimes, especially on YouTube. Now, I have seen quite a few of these videos where it looks like the sky has something in it, but you can't quite focus on what that is. It's as if the camera is trying to focus on the object, but it just can't get a good hold on it. This leads to lots of blurry videos of UFOs in the sky. May 22nd in Alvechurch, United Kingdom, someone was admiring a cloud formation. It had a rainbow coloration, just like those boomerang-shaped craft that were seen in New York and Canada. Well, the spotter got out their camera and began taking photos. This was when they noticed a dark shape darting about the sky right next to the rainbow. The dark object moves around the sky for a few seconds and then shot straight up at an incredible speed. In my book Saucers, it's a fictional story, the aliens disguised their ship as a cloud. This would probably fool most people back when there were very few radar bases around our country. A strange object was seen just hanging in the air over Central Park in New York on May 25th. From the Hilton Hotel, which overlooks the park, a husband and wife were looking out their window from the 45th floor. Wanting to catch the view on their camera, they went to take a photo when they realized there was some kind of a craft hanging in the sky. It's an odd, kind of a two-dimensional shape, and it has rings of lights around it, kind of like Saturn. The couple thought they were about a mile from the object, which was perfectly symmetrical. The object was only in view for a second or so before it blinked out of sight. On the same day, on Liberty State Park, a witness was taking photographs of the Statue of Liberty. They snapped off a bunch of photos and then they turned to take several images of the city skyline. After an uneventful day, they headed home. Once they were home, they looked at their camera when they noticed a strange object in the photo. It looked kind of like a hologram of sorts. The photo with the anomaly on it was taken as the witness was facing Staten Island. This would have been facing the other direction from the couple that saw the object over Central Park. It may have been the same object since it could have moved about the sky as it pleased. In Reading, New Jersey, a man was out walking his dog at 4 in the morning. He saw something bright hanging in the sky. The man used his cell phone as a telescope to zoom in on the object just to see what it was. The object looked like a large round craft that just stayed in one place. After staring at the thing for several minutes, the dog had finished his business and it was time to get inside. The man got his dog back home but kept looking back to see if the huge ball was still there. It remained in the same place until the sun began to come up, at which time it disappeared. The witness is positive that this was not a planet or a balloon. In the same month, the UFO was spotted in Brooklyn on the evening during a rainstorm over Brooklyn, New York. A strange object was captured on video making some crazy maneuvers in the sky. The witness managed to catch the object on her camera. The UFO folks that watched it were unable to say what the flying object might have been. June 6th, D-Day, only in 2019, in Austin, Texas, a motorist managed to catch a cigar-shaped UFO near the intersection of 35 and 290. The craft hangs in the air more like a balloon than an airplane. The craft was moving towards the north at a very slow pace, too slow to be a plane. I zoomed in on the object on my computer. There's no horizontal stabilizer. That's what you'd call a tail. The flying object looks very big as it crosses the sky. It couldn't have been a blimp either because blimps also have horizontal and vertical stabilizers on their tail. Could it be some secret government aircraft? If it was, why would they be flying it over Austin, Texas? This just doesn't make sense. Seeing a cigar-shaped flying object doesn't mean that the craft looks all that much like a cigar. It could be a saucer seen from the side. In the older times, people had said they saw what looked like a flying shield. There were no saucers or cigars yet to compare, so they used what they were familiar with. I tried to get these sightings in the proper order, but reading hundreds of UFO reports and watching dozens of UFO videos, I probably got a few out of order. There are so many sightings coming in every month, it's hard to sort out the hoaxes and the misidentifications from the actual reports. Well, this has been a busy year. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you did, tell your friends. Get them to listen up too. For Strange Things, this is Chris James.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?